from that pulpit, I talked openly about reproductive health rights and justice. I talked openly about my abortions, and I talked openly about feeling and sensing and believing that God ordains us to make choices and that we have agency and that abortion is a sacred divine right.
Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. We're so excited about today's guest. Today's guest is Reverend Erika Ferguson, and she is the founder of the Tubman Travel Project, a first of its kind travel model for reproductive freedom travel in a post-Roe America. They're launching the Tubman Travel Training Program for volunteers that are interested in helping women travel. She also hosts the Repro Report, a podcast on faith, strategy, and reproductive justice. Oh, Reverend, we are so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Madness Cafe.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I was wondering if you would be willing to share your own story and how that affected you and got you started with the Tubman Project.
Sure. So my story starts when I was 14 and had my first abortion. Then 2 years later, I had my second abortion. And after my first abortion, I was just relieved and went on home and went about my business. After my second abortion, I looked around and realized that I was someplace in a clinic that whoever was in charge of it and the women that cared for me were incredibly loving, kind, and supportive. And it occurred to me in my advanced age of 18 that I could probably help in some way, shape, or form. And so I started volunteering at that time in California, where I'm from. Believe it or not, in the Bay Area, they did not have distance laws for reproductive clinics. And what that meant was the opposition could come right up to the door of someone arriving and basically harass them all the way into the clinic.
Oh my God.
Yeah, people are very shocked. It's in Berkeley, Oakland, very, very progressive blue state, but we forget how progress is made. So I started with a organization called Operation Escort, escorting women into the clinic. I was, fast forward, I was pregnant 7 months, and you pretty much could tell I was definitely pregnant. And one of the opposition stepped out and spit on me.
Oh.
And yeah. And at my best, I was able to maintain composure. But what that did was make me make a commitment right then and there that no matter what, I was going to be involved in reproductive justice, no matter what. And it wasn't called reproductive justice very much back then, but I was so angry, and that anger can be fuel. And so it fueled me for quite a few years. I volunteered, I did all the things. And then fast forward, I moved to Texas, and as an interfaith minister who's licensed and ordained, I started my own spiritual community. And in Texas, a Black female who was very LGBTQ identified as lesbian at the time, most of the clergy I met said, no one's ever going to listen to you here. And I said, well, hold my glass of wine. And I proceeded to, have a spiritual community of all faiths and no faiths as well. And from that pulpit, I talked openly about reproductive health rights and justice. I talked openly about my abortions, and I talked openly about feeling and sensing and believing that God ordains us to make choices and that we have agency and that abortion is a sacred divine right. Not as smart in Texas, but nevertheless, I'm not known for making the most smart decisions. I'm just known for making the most radical decisions. And so there was lots of controversy as I did not stop preaching about my abortions and about how God wanted, and the community grew. In Texas, there was a mass shooting. I mean, amongst all the many mass shootings, but this one was particularly painful because it was in a church and all of the members were killed. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had to make a decision that if I was going to continue talking about the importance of reproductive justice, I couldn't do it from the pulpit because I couldn't endanger all of those people that were there.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the church I started, I had to make the hard decision, but it was the right decision. And so I left the church and went right into policy and advocacy and spent most of the time lobbying and all of those kinds of things. And so the Tubman Travel Project was born as a result of SB 8, which was Senate Bill 8, that went
Mm-hmm.
into place 5 years ago in this past September. And at that time, I was doing lots of reproductive justice counseling for women trying to make decisions about their reproductive choices and those reconciling the choices they made. I did a lot of work via text because a lot of young women, that's how they connect.
Yeah.
And SB 8 went into effect at midnight. I was counseling and working with a young woman who sent me a text right at 12:01. I saved the text. And she said, "How am I going to get out of the state? I can't even figure out how to get a bus across town." And I text back, "I'll help you." I didn't exactly know what that means. I'd like to be all noble, but that was not the case. I just knew that I was going to help her. And I connected with fellow clergy. We connected with a church that was about social justice, and we started escorting groups of women out of Texas into Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they could get their reproductive care, their abortions, their procedures, anything that they needed. And we kept doing that until the decision by the Supreme Court. And once that decision was handed down, things froze, rightly so. No one knew what was going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And it took us a few minutes, a few weeks, but we figured out that we could do it if we did it smaller and more covertly. And what I mean by that is the largest group I ever escorted in one trip was 28.
Wow.
And we were able to get all of those women to their reproductive care in a new state and get them back home all in one day. Obviously, traveling with a group of women the size of 28 is way too obvious. So we brought the group size down. And then as things heated up in Texas, as they always do, many of the clergy, rightly so, did their risk assessment and realized that they couldn't take the risk of escorting. But I knew that I would and I could. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kept doing it. And fast forward to 5.5 years later, and I have escorted nearly 498 women out of the
Wow.
state into Albuquerque to get their reproductive care and gotten them back home safely. And that is how the Tubman Travel Project and my path came to be. So that's as laser and condensed as I can get. Sorry for the long monologue.
No, no, it was
No.
wonderful.
Yeah, that was amazing. And wow, I'm so amazed by you and the work that you're doing and the work of all of the people who help you. When I was watching some of the videos on your site, and in one of them you say, which completely floored me, and I have to bring this up before the other question that I really want to ask. You say God wants us to be free and have the dignity of choice.
Mhm.
That hit me so hard because I'm not used to religious leaders saying things like that.
Mm,
Can you please talk about that?
sure, sure. I tend to live by my spiritual principles. And these spiritual principles are universal versus dogmatic or religious based,
Mm,
denomination based. And because they're a set of principles that are universal and timeless and changeless, it was and has been and will always be to me very clear that the God of my understanding wants only for us to be free. And whatever that might mean. And far be it for any mere mortal to decide what that freedom is for anyone else. And so that's the hill I stand on, that's the hill I'll die on. And because I believe it through and through, my work out pictures as what you see in the Tubman Travel Project. Because for me, which tends to not necessarily be the full view of the reproductive justice movement currently, is that there is actually a choice when flying, when traveling. Women make the choice to fly to freedom. Now, is that choice always easy? No, it never has been. And is that choice challenges? No, but it never has been. But nevertheless, they get to make the choice.
Mm.
And that narrative of a woman is always at choice, regardless of policy, politics, or people with power, is our more than our slogan, it is what we practice. And so that is how it became so clear to me that I would do this work for the rest of my life.
Do you have fears about your own freedom, that possibly you could be arrested and harmed?
That was going to be my next question too.
Yes, it is a question that many, many people ask me. And I will answer it, but I want to preface it by saying that I do not believe that anything that I do is special or unique. I believe that, and history has taught us that many people sacrifice their lives and their time and their well being for the good of something greater. And I do believe that any of us at any given time would do the same thing if we could. So I want to preface it by saying that. And then I want to say that no, I actually don't think about my freedom or someone harming me. Because if I did, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do.
Mm,
And that is absolutely the truth. And that's not a knock on those who choose not to. It's just not my path. Because for me, I absolutely believe that if I was to die uh, in service to this work, I owe the life that I have right now at 55 to women that I couldn't tell you their names and will never meet and don't know. The
yeah.
life I have now with my husband and my 5 kids and the freedom was because people were willing to sacrifice for me. And so even if I am no longer of childbearing age or have the ability to bear children, uh, I know that if I was to be harmed or jailed, then it would have been a life well worth living because someone sacrificed for me. And anything less than that, anything less than being willing to give my all in service to something greater. I mean, if I do die, I can't think of a better reason to die.
Wow.
Wow. Uh, I'm
Well
gonna be
said.
I'm gonna be crying a lot in this episode.
I can see that.
Oh God.
Well, while you're crying, I have one
Okay.
more question
Yeah,
that's
go
somewhat
ahead.
related to that. So I did go on your website also, and I poked around a little as you do, and I saw how someone in need of reproductive services could sign up. And I thought, gosh, I don't know if I was a young woman in Texas, if I would feel safe and comfortable even going that far.
Hmm.
How are young women responding in Texas?
Well, I have two answers for that. The first answer is the narrative that's being told by both those that are pro-choice and those that are pro-life.
Yeah.
This narrative is one of fear and trauma for different reasons,
Hmm.
of course.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But what I see in reality actually is not as much fear and trauma that we are all part of sharing and talking about. What I actually see in real life is women who are grateful to have the support and help, women who are willing to do whatever it takes to get the care that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see women who, like myself at their age, really don't care about anything else, because if they don't have the freedom to not have children when they don't want them, then what's the point?
True.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
So,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I think our movement could do well over these next handful of years, maybe a decade or so, to begin to tell the story as it really is, which is that it doesn't have to be traumatic. It
Mm.
really can be triumphant, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have people there that are going to show up and care for you and make sure you get all that you need and are willing to risk for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have people that show up like that, all of a sudden everything is transformed, right? It becomes an act of agency and dignity and true deep care when people show up to make sure you get what you need.
Mm.
And I think that that's the narrative that we want to begin talking about. And that's why we want to say, regardless of whoever is in office anywhere at any time, we're going
Mm-hmm.
to figure out a way to get women to care and get them back to their lives so that they can live them. I
Yes.
can't think of a more subversive way to make it clear that it doesn't matter anymore about politics,
Yeah.
because we have the ability, the capacity, the know-how to make shit happen.
It doesn't
Amen.
matter anymore about politics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that.
Me
I love that.
too.
Oh
It's
my
like
God.
that is the breath of fresh air that I needed to hear.
oh, good, good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so something about what you said made me want to ask this next question. In the training in information, just part of it, there's the phrase step into service without saviorism.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I know why that resonated with me,
Uh-huh.
but can you tell our listeners why that is listed or why that's even said on your website, please, ma'am?
That resonates with me too, Raquel.
Yep, yep, yep.
Sure,
I
Yep.
need
sure.
it too. I need it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I will tell you, I'll tell you a story. And the story is around what it means to be of wholehearted and true service. And I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather was a minister. And my grandmother showed me that to be of service is not about the self. And if it's not about the self, then it doesn't matter what anybody says or what you actually do, whether you're cleaning the toilet or whether you're speaking to 5,000 people. Service is service, and it is never about you. And so that out pictures for me when I bring women back to the airport in Albuquerque at the end of the day. I tell them, and we've spent 15 hours together. I tell them that they are going to get on this plane. We're all going to get on. And that if they need anything, of course, I will be there on the flight. But that this is where we say goodbye when we step inside the plane. Because when that plane lands in the state of Texas and those doors open, I don't know what will happen to me on the other side.
Mm.
But it doesn't matter. What matters is that they got the care that they needed so that they could go on with their lives. And that's the same thing that women told me when I had my reproductive um, choice. And what I know is that I tell them, if you don't remember me, it's okay. If we never see each other ever again, it's okay, because it was never about me. It was about being the vessel, the vehicle, the instrument that is providing the opportunity for it to be about you. And so that's what I mean about not saviorism, is that I don't care if they don't know my name. I don't even care if they know I'm a minister. I don't, none of that matters. What matters is that they trust me to get them safely to where they want, to get them the care they need and deserve, and to get them back home.
Mm.
And so that's what I mean about service without saviorism. It's a way in which we can learn to show up with a high resolve of anonymity, agency, and a kind of potent way of positioning ourselves to make sure people get what they need by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Reverend, have you ever faced any consequences getting off that plane? Has anything horrible ever happened?
Not getting off the plane, that has not happened. I know that it could at any given time.
Of course it could.
And the reality is, it could at any given time, no matter what job I had.
That's true. That's true. Raquel and I
Yeah.
often
Yeah.
say if they were paying attention to what we were saying on the podcast, we'd all be in
Mhm.
trouble by now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I've even gone so far as to tell some of my coworkers, if I don't show up for work, please come look for me.
right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. And the reality is that I tell people, and this is no knock on people that need to assess their risk willingness. That's fine. Everybody makes that decision for themselves. That's part of
Right.
agency.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the way the deal is, we're all going to die. Some of us are going to be on the 6 o'clock train. Some of us are going to be on the 10 o'clock train. But we kind of know how the game is going to end. Not everybody is going to be 95 years old, surrounded by their loved ones, listening to their favorite piece of music as they drift off into wherever it is they go. Some of us are going to have traumatic deaths. Some of us are going to have painful deaths. Some of us are going to have accidental deaths. But that is what is going to happen. And so I don't live my life afraid of that because I already know the end.
Wow.
So then that gives me a certain kind of freedom, right? Because now I'm like, you can't do anything to me that I don't know is already going to take place. And there's a certain level of, I would say, freedom, and I probably dare say arrogance in the ability to look at death in the face and not be afraid.
Well,
What I
that's the
hear
best kind of arrogance.
what I hear is that allows you to actually live your life with purpose, to
Right.
like to do all of the things that you want to do. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Because here's the thing. I've counseled, I've been in connection with many people who are alive, but might as well be dead. Because
yeah,
the fear of existence is so strong that they're not living anyway.
Yep.
yep.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Wow. On your site, you talk about a new vision for the movement. And you've kind of touched on it a little bit, kind of hinted at it a little bit, throughout our talk. Can you expound on that, please, ma'am?
I can. And actually, believe it or not, this piece that has been born or is birthing itself through me is as a result of almost 30 years of lived experience in the field. And so even though I have that lived experience, I do know that it more than likely will be not as well received as other ideas and concepts. But again,
Mm,
I have to be okay with that. And
yep.
and so what I mean by that is that our movement is experiencing, I would say, a type of collapse. And I think that it is a type of collapse that's born out of our inability. And every sentence I say, I will say, are we us, because I include myself in all of this as well. So it's not outside looking in, it's inside looking out. And what I mean is that we are a movement that has a very difficult time with admitting the missteps, the mistakes, and the let's say unwillingness to address where we were wrong.
Mm.
Mm,
And anyone, any movement in any sports, really, when you think about it, at the end of the day, the losing team will go home, and the next day they will what they call watch the film. They will
yep.
look at where the mistakes were, how they lost, why they lost, right? When we lost Roe, and if we don't start to look at it from the eye of what what are we missing? What aren't we addressing? What
Mm-hmm.
needs are there? Where is our message actually off? For the purpose of correction and dramatic change, we will never make real progress. And I also think that the other point that I have is that we have a way of being very self-focused. And what that means is there's a lot of my rights, my body, my choice, right? But the reality is, if we don't start positioning ourselves to fight as fiercely for our own rights as we do for our opposition's children, then we're not really moving forward, right?
Everyone's rights.
Everyone, it has to be.
Yep.
There
Everyone's
is a
rights.
self-reflection within our movement that I think is critical. And
Mhm.
there's a way in which we need to begin to address that while we may not like the ways in which our opposition has positioned itself, there's no denying that there are some places that we could learn from,
Strategy.
Mhm.
They
right?
had the long-term strategy.
Yep.
Right, right. And
Right.
so there's a humility in admitting we could be wrong about quite a few things. Anytime we are still marching and saying no uterus, no voice, we have just cut out 50% of those
Agreed.
that are involved.
Right.
Because
Agreed.
last
Right.
time I checked, in order to get pregnant, it takes,
Takes two.
Yep.
right. And so I happen to be married to a man, and I have two sons who were 16 and 17 when I started the Tubman Travel Project. And they said to me, well, we're two white men and we're straight and we would help with everything that we have, but we don't have a place. And I said to them, I will figure out how to have a place for you at the table.
Oh,
And I
I
just knew that I was going to start writing about this and that I was going to start talking about this, even if it was unpopular, because even the data supports the fact that if we don't engage men, if we don't engage those that are not
yep.
exactly like us, even just for the purpose
mhm.
of listening with
Mhm.
Yep.
passion, right? Because ideas aren't they're not contagious, right? That's not
Yep.
how it works. So listening to opposition, to their fears, to their pain, to their sorrow, does not create a way in which my position is any less. It only makes me more compassionate towards them. And I think
I
we must look at those things and we must figure out how. Listen, my sons, the New York Times came and did a story. And before they were going to do a story on the Tubman Travel Project, my sons were living at home still in Texas. And I called them in and I said, hey, this is going to happen. I want to do this story, but I can't guarantee our safety. I can't guarantee what will happen. My face, all of my message will be all over. And I want you guys to know that if you're afraid and you don't want any kind of attention in that way, I will not do this. And both of my sons said, you have to do this. This is your destiny. And we will stand by you. And so when we look at our movement that continues to think and be somewhat hypocritical, I have to say, no, we have to look at what's real. We have to invite men to the table. They have to not just sit in the back, they actually have to participate because they also don't have a choice if a woman decides she wants to continue the pregnancy. They will have to support that child.
yep.
Mhm.
And so it's this idea that if we don't do the self-reflection, if we don't hold up a mirror to our own faults and failings, we will be destined to continue to repeat it.
Mhm.
It is like a mirror because your words are exactly what women have been saying in in the feminist circles forever. They've been saying, I don't have a seat at the table. And
Mhm.
now we look at this, what we're doing with men in reproductive, they don't have a seat at the table.
Right,
It is a mirror.
right.
It's fascinating.
And so my purpose with the book that I'm working on is to begin to invite these conversations within our movement because the self-centeredness is eating from the inside.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my grandparents taught me that you are of service to something greater than yourself that you may never ever see the benefits of. And we know that the civil rights movement and history teaches us that many people sacrificed and died for the vision that had nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, I can tell that you are a preacher. I can
Because I'm revved up.
I know, right? I'm feeling some things stirring in my
Me too.
soul.
Me too.
Stirring in my soul. So and I think this is leading us into my next question, which that's awesome. You talk about reproductive freedom for all forever.
Mhm.
I love that. And I would love for you to talk about that and just please expound as much as you would like, please.
Well, I try to not emulate the ministers that I know, in the sense that I try to be clear and brief and be seated, because no minister I know does any of that. And I know a lot of them. But I will say, in response to your question, is that reproductive freedom for all forever, that viewpoint will mean that we will have to make choices and decisions that may not be immediately for our personal benefit. Reproductive freedom for all forever means making the choice to center reproductive justice versus any one group. That doesn't mean that those that are on the margins, that those that are the most minimalized don't get the support and attention that they deserve. But if we don't center the idea, then we're destined to always fight within ourselves for the center. And at the center should always be justice. It's never about any individual group, marginalized or not. It has to be about an idea. And you can't ever kill an idea. And so I think that reproductive justice and reproductive freedom for all forever means that we are willing to work relentlessly and tirelessly for the future of the movement, not for the present of the movement. And we have to be willing to say, I want reproductive freedom for those that I don't like.
Yeah.
Not new words. They probably should sound familiar to anyone who's listened to civil rights movement. I want this right for those that I don't like, for those that I have a hard time with, hell, for those that I don't even want to be around. I still must fight for their rights, whether they fight with me or not. And that means to fight forever. And that means that my great grandchildren will know that this is holy and sacred work and is theirs for them to do in the way in which they can do it.
Now, this is a tough question because this is, well, at least for me, maybe it isn't for you. But when people ask me about my beliefs about why I'm pro choice, it's because I believe in the right to choose for everyone. And, but people will say to me, but what about if a person truly believes abortion is murder? What if they really believe that? How do we, well, I love because you're a reverend and you're supporting the right to choose when so much that I've seen, because I don't know very many religious folks, but what I've seen on TV and probably with all the wrong sources, probably seeing very biased news actually.
All the stereotypes.
Yeah.
Same.
What I see is the fire and brimstone. It's against God's will. You're a bad person. You're a
going
sinner.
to hell.
You're committing murder. So what's the counter argument to that?
There is none.
Oh, that's why I'm not good at it, I guess.
Right, because our job is not to change people's beliefs. Our job is to believe our beliefs. And that is exactly why I've decided to become an interfaith minister, because I wanted to understand all of the religious faith and traditions that there are, and to understand why, to understand, not to change, to understand why people believe what they believe.
Yes.
Mm.
Why do
That's
they
the
believe
work.
that?
Right.
Why?
And not to argue with them, but to understand them, right?
Yes, not to argue with them. Yes, protect your peace. Don't argue with them. Sorry. I got really
I
excited.
love the way you said that. Don't protect your peace, right? Right? Because here's the idea, and I'm going to piggyback on what you just said, right? We do, as a movement and as humans, right? It's natural to move into a state of protection, right? I'm going to protect those that need protection. I'm going to protect my own well-being. I'm going to protect, right? That automatically sets up a dynamic of adversary, right?
Yeah, it does.
Automatically, right? It's built in.
Yeah.
And there's no harm in that. Sometimes that makes sense. But if everything looks like, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, but that's actually not the case, right? What I'm trying to say here is that I'm so steeped in what I believe is true that you're not believing it doesn't sway me, right? So that allows me to be a more compassionate human being. And I can meet you at the level of your humanity without judgment, without deciding what you're doing wrong and why you should be listening to me. Very few movements happen because we beat other people over the head, right? That's not how it works, right? It happens because we tell the truth, we stay in compassion, and we move relentlessly with resolve and resilience forward.
Is the reproductive justice movement different from the feminist movement? And the reason I ask this question is because I recently read Feminism is for Everyone by Bell Hooks. And she said in it, and this is where I struggle a little bit. She said in it, if people are pro-life, they cannot be feminists.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people after the Women's March in 2020 ask, why weren't all women welcome? And I said all women were welcome, but they said no, they weren't if they were pro-life people. And I've been confused about that issue ever since.
Yep.
Interested in your take. Also interested in your take, Raquel. If
Yeah,
you're
Raquel, why don't you jump in here and tell us what you're.
because I think this is, are they the same movement? Are they two separate movements? And
Do you want me to go first?
I want
Yeah.
both of you to go.
Oh, okay. Well, if we go with the definition of pro-life that is common right now, then no, I'm sorry. Then feminism is not for them.
Mhm.
Because in my understanding of feminism, feminism is about choice and being able to choose how you want to live your life and how you want to live your feminism, right? And as pro-life is defined now in our society and as it has been defined basically since that term came into being, it has stood for blocking other women's choice, the
True.
choice of women who don't believe like them.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, no, I'm sorry. As far as pro-life is defined right now, no, they weren't welcome at the march.
Mhm.
I told them they were welcome.
You're in many ways you are a far nicer woman than I am, Jennifer.
More confused. But is the reproductive justice movement the same as the feminist movement? Or are these two separate, or are they the same movement?
Mm.
I think there's circles that overlap. I don't think they're necessarily the same circle. There's you know there's a lot of overlap, but I don't think they're quite the same circle. That's just my opinion.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
What do you think, Reverend Erica?
I think that that's an interesting question that I think will will always require reflection and revision, right? Because as we, all knowledge is provisional.
Sure.
And so what we know, Bell Hooks, one of my just idols who I just, just brilliant, brilliant scholar, just brilliant. But each of us is called in our own way to progress and expand and shift, right? And so I think all of us find our rightful place in that right moment. What I believe is true and what I know now, my great grandchildren will not.
True.
Mm.
True.
And so the actual question is, what is it that we have that meet? Not what is it that is separate and different. It is, where can I meet you at the level of your humanity? And if the question is this movement the same as that movement, we might have lost a little bit of the plot, because I think the question is about a principle. Are we all striving for people's freedom? That may
Yes.
be different for other people, right? My white brother,
Mhm.
my husband's white, and and an agnostic or atheist actually. What looks like what is true and real for him looks different for me. That doesn't mean that's adversary, it just means different.
Uh-huh.
And
Mhm.
so we strive to stretch our current thinking, stretch our current ways of moving, and stretch our capacity for what I would call divine understanding. And I think
Mm.
with that, we can progress as a people, right? That's really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to exclude anybody. We're not trying to convince anybody. We're not trying to bend or break anybody. And even if that is what others may be trying to do, that doesn't have anything to do with us. Our job is to continue to find the compassion, the humanity, the care, and create the conditions for progression and right alignment.
Mm.
Whoa.
Damn.
Yeah.
But I
Damn.
mean, it's I spend a lot of time thinking about these things, probably
Yes.
more. My kids are adults and I don't have grandchildren, so I've got lots of space to think. And as I think about these things, even as I talk about them, as I write my book, as I do all of that, I I invite query. I invite challenge. I invite people who see it differently than me, because that is how I progress in my thinking and in
Mm.
my ways of being, right? I'm not threatened by someone else's thought. I'm threatened when I shut down my opportunity for expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I need to. I think I need to rephrase. Okay, okay. So yeah, okay. The pro-life women can come to the march, but they can't come to the march trying to like shut shit down. Okay, come to the march and listen and try to learn something maybe, but don't come to try to shut it down.
I think
Like you wouldn't go to somebody else's church or somebody else's place of worship and be like, "Let me come up in here and raise a ruckus." No,
I don't
sit
think
down and
they
be
wanted
polite.
to come as opposition. I
Oh, okay.
think I think they wanted to be included, but felt that they weren't because they were pro-life. I actually had this conversation with one of our friends from high school
Mm.
whose wife felt like she was excluded. And I was like, she wasn't excluded. She could have come.
Well,
And
that's
it
true. Yeah, she could have. It's not like she
well,
would have had,
I
unless she had a shirt on saying,
well, I felt like
pro-life hates
I
pro-choice.
felt like she could, but a lot of people felt the same way that you did. That and Bell Hook's book said that. That's why I was asking the question, because I was like, am I off base with this?
Mhm.
I don't know. It's a lot to think about, actually.
Mm.
It is. It's a lot to think about, and we should be thinking about it, right? Because we're going to set the stage for the next iteration of the movement. That's our job. We're hospicing the old while we midwife the new. That's
Yeah.
we're those, that's what we do. That's what our role is now at this stage of the game. Other people have different roles, right? I always use the analogy that some of us are on, the fast bullet train to freedom. Some of us are on a stagecoach. Some of us are driving a car. We're all taking different modes of transportation at different speeds, But as long as we're all moving towards the direction of wholeness, of compassion, of care, right, then we can create the bigger space, right? So it is true that the opposition may not have felt like they could be there. And maybe that's something we need to look at. Why
Mm.
do you guys feel that way, right?
Right.
Tell us about that. We're here to listen to that. That doesn't mean we collude or condone, right? You go to someone's house, and if they are of certain religious practices or ethnic preferences, when you are invited to their home, you follow the customs of that home.
Yes, you do.
But it's our job to make sure they're welcome. But it's also
Mm.
our job to design the parameters, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
right. To care is to outline a framework for connection, right? That's not
Mm.
opposition, that's invitation.
You are building the new future that I want to see.
Mhm.
You are building it. Your words are the bridge that I've been looking for.
Well, thank
It's just beautiful. I'm so impressed.
Yeah.
you.
I
Thank you.
can't wait to read your book. I mean, my God, if you're just like this, just chatting off the cuff, my God, what your written word must look like. When is your book
When can we
coming
get
out?
that?
Yes, please.
Well, it's
Because
funny.
we will have you back to talk about that book.
Yes, we will.
Absolutely, absolutely. The book is called Reckless Rage: The
Ooh,
Collapse,
nice title.
of the Reproductive Movement and What's Next.
Oh, I love it.
Ooh.
Right? We're working. I will spend the winter writing. We're looking at, hopefully, before the election of 2026, being out in the summer.
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, sadly, we're running out of time, you two. Was there anything
Mm.
that you wanted to say that we didn't give you the chance to, that you wanted to tell our audience about how people can help, or whatever you
Sure.
wanted to, whatever you want to tell us?
Sure. I will say that what I learned, not as gracefully as I would like, is that I can't do this by myself. My health won't allow it. It's not sustainable.
Mm.
And so, as a result of some really tough lessons about what my body is capable of at 55, I have made the decision to move towards the model of training, to decentralize the Tubman Travel Project, and to make sure that I leave competence in my wake. And that means uh, after 5 years, you better believe I know everything you could imagine about how to get women on planes and trains and automobiles and get them to the care that they need. And I believe the key for us in this movement now with the current administration, because the reality is nothing's going to change for the next 5 or 10 years. There may be small wins, but the dramatic change is going to take a while. And so
Yeah.
we should all settle into that understanding. And so I believe that I can teach women how to do what I do. And by
Mm.
being able to do that, they can then go out into their communities and build this, right? So that then it's the Tubman Travel Project out of Mississippi, the Tubman Travel Project out of
Yes.
South Carolina, right? And in small communities, building the network, the volunteers. I can train women to do everything that I do if their heart is open and if they have the courage and the conviction and the confidence to trust that they can do it. And
Wow.
I think that is the only way we can do this, is that we have to create this sort of this expansive network that can never be stopped because it's bigger than any one person. So I would like people to keep watch. You can find me at my website at my name, Reverend Erika Forbes. That's my maiden name, ReverendErikaFerguson.com, or you can go to Tubman Travel Training Project and find out more information, because it will be an online intensive training for 10 weeks. Is a selection criteria because there are certain personality types and ways of looking at the world that lend themselves for this type of work. I always like to joke by saying I could have either been a drug dealer or do this. The skills are right. And so I, so I'll just leave that for people to imagine.
That's
But
funny.
the training will be in small cohorts. Those cohorts will bond together so that they become each other's support. And then there is actually a week intensive where I take women in person through the travel journey process. So they really know what they're doing when they get
Wow.
out back into their communities. So that is my key project for 2026 is to launch the training cohorts and make sure they're both high tech and high touch um, and uh, and train anyone willing to do this work.
I am blown away.
Same. I am in awe of you,
Thank you.
Reverend. And just to let our listeners know, as always, all of this will be in the show notes, so don't worry. But I'm blown away.
Thank
Blown
you.
away. Thank you so much for doing this work and for then also training other women to do the work so that it's, like you said, it's service without saviorism. It will live and grow beyond you. So thank you from the
Absolutely.
from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be able to dialogue and to laugh and cry a little bit, right?
It
Because
was fun
our lives require all
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so to have the space to do that together is deeply, deeply connective. So thank you.
Oh,
for us too. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're crying again, Raquel.
All right again. Oh boy. Oh,
Oh, Raquel, do you want to recap? That was
yes.
amazing.
Oh my God. I am so moved and fired up and just I mean if I'm ever in Texas, I swear to God, I'm gonna find her church and go. Like I just or wherever she's talking. I just need to sit in a room and just listen to her talk. I'm amazed at everything that she's doing. The service without saviorism, the God, what is it? God wants us to be free and have the dignity of choice. The thought about reforming the movement and the how did she put it? Self-reflection and reflection and revision. That was it. Reflection and revision. My God, if groups did more of that, where
You,
would we be? If
you've
the
actually,
Democrats did more
I was
of
going to say,
that.
you've actually been saying that for a long time about the Democrats. I
Yeah,
mean, way back when this podcast started, you were saying that about the Democrats, and you're not
yeah,
wrong. You're
yeah,
not wrong. The Republicans had a long game. They had a plan. They had
yeah.
Project whatever before they had Project 2025. Where's our
Hmm.
Project 2020? What are we looking at now? 8?
Yeah, yeah,
Where is it?
yeah. Does anybody talk about it? No. Can we have one, please? Can we have something?
But I do like this idea of how did she put it about like it's too late to stop it. Women
Yeah,
are
yeah. It's
going
it's bigger. It's bigger than us.
yeah, women are going to take care of each other and make sure that we get the reproductive health that we need,
Yeah,
the services that we need.
yeah,
And I don't need those services anymore, but I would fight for anyone to have them, including the Republican friend that I was trying to talk to about.
right.
It is about choice,
Hmm.
freedom and
Hmm.
choice.
So much about. I'm sorry, I just interrupted you, but
Nope, you go for it.
so much of what Reverend Erica said just hit so hard.
I
And the
agree.
way that she says it and the way that she has the conversation, I dare say that many, many, many people will listen to her before they'll listen to somebody else.
I would.
Dear Jesus, please let people listen to Reverend Erica. Let there be more people like Reverend Erica who can have this message that people will listen to and packaged in a way that people will listen to it.
For me, what was kind of revolutionary for me today is she helped solidify for me some things that I have been thinking about.
Mm.
I had a dream the other night. It was about used clothing, but of course, everything's symbolic in a dream. I was in a used clothing store with my daughter and I was trying to pick out the new. And then I realized that someone took my box of donations and I got obsessed about where's my box? Where's my box?
Mm-hmm.
When I woke up, I realized that although I went there to find something new, I got obsessed with that which I was trying to give away. My focus was on what I was trying to release instead of on what I was trying to build.
Yeah.
And I think what I heard from her today was that we have to settle in the patriarchy or the capitalistic patriarchy that we're living under isn't going to change in the next couple of years. We are going to see it change.
Yeah.
But we got to settle in and vision and move towards and think about and learn towards that vision instead of what once was.
Yes.
Like we need to be forward focused.
Yep.
And we need to maybe change our messaging. We need to build more community. We need to get more united. And another thing I want to say, and then I'll let you go, I'll be done. I feel like Ruth Bader Ginsburg told us that all this was going to happen. And nobody listened to her because Roe versus Wade was never codified.
Yep.
And she kept saying, this isn't going to last. This isn't going to last. And nobody listened. Well, maybe people did, but not enough that
the people who could make the laws and put the laws into place didn't listen.
Well, and the other thing, I can't remember what amendment it is, but the amendment that makes us equal citizens, is that what is that? Is that the 19th?
The 19th, I think.
19th? I was going to say 19th. We still don't have the 19th Amendment. That is a big piece of this because we're not seen as fully human still. We're still not seen as fully human.
Yeah.
At least in our Constitution. So, like, they won't sign it into law. How do we ever have rights about our own bodies if we're still half a human, or we're still property, or we're still bound by the marriage contract? And we're still bred to be wives and mothers.
Yep.
And I liked being a wife. I love being a mother, but that should be our choice.
Right.
I feel like Ruth told us this was going to happen.
Yeah. I think a lot of people said this was going to happen, and a lot of other people didn't listen. This just proves what Reverend Erika said. She said, how did she put it? We're hospicing the old while midwifing the new.
I love that. I love that.
Right. Like, can we focus on some midwifing a little bit more? Like, yes, the hospicing, yes, please, absolutely. But we need to get to the midwifing too.
Midwifing. Yeah. That's what that dream was about. That dream was about picking out that new clothing and letting the old stuff.
Yeah, letting the old stuff fall away.
Go to its next rightful owner, right? Yeah, midwifing the dream.
Yeah.
Midwifing, not the dream.
Midwifing the new.
Midwifing the new reality.
Yeah. And it's fully possible for us to hospice and midwife at the same time.
Man, I never thought I'd say this, but I could talk to that Reverend forever.
Oh my God, same.
I never thought I'd hear those words come out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never said those words in my life before now, but yes, Lord, I could listen to Reverend Erika all day long.
Me too. So inspiring.
My God.
Let's get that message out there.
Yes.
Let's get this message to everyone.
Yes. Please, listeners, share this episode. Yeah. Share the episode, share the show notes, share the information about Tubman Travel Project.
The thoughts.
Yeah. Share the information about the training. So if you don't live in Texas, you can get something set up in whatever state you live in. Work it out, people. Come on. Share this information. I love it. Bye, Jennifer. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend.
Or you could leave us a comment and a 5-star review, or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks, everybody.